The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Coming to you from some far point station, like a cosmic tumbleweed, both north and south of the Pleiades. Here's your host, Gary Anderson.
Well, that is me. I have to always wait to make sure that's the last bit of thunder. That's a new intro by a station over in Utah. Sent us over last week. I really enjoy it. I don't know. It even gives me goosebumps. Well, tonight we got a great guest on, Eric Altman. We're going to be talking about, well, monsters, Bigfoot, and cryptids and all that. Eric, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Gary. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, yeah. So, what's been going on in the Bigfoot community?
Well, the latest news that has been released came out on the 5th of June, just a few days ago. An article made the AP Wire and mainstream media about the FBI releasing a correspondence file from the Freedom of Information Act, where they talked about testing supposed Bigfoot hair that was given to them from a researcher in 1976 by the name of Peter Byrne. He's one of the more well-known, famous researchers, and he submitted a small piece of tissue with hair attached to it, and asked them to test the hair to see if they could get some kind of results, because he claimed that at that time they weren't able to identify it. And of course, the FBI looked at the hair, and the test results came back as hairs from a deer family origin. So it was an interesting article. It's something that I was aware of because the Freedom of Information Act, there were files released a few years ago where they talked about something very similar to that, but nothing groundbreaking or earth-shattering as far as the Bigfoot community is concerned, but still interesting enough to know that the FBI had, at 1976, looked into the possibility of Bigfoot existing.
Oh, yeah. I do, feel that they do exist, and the reason why I say that, Eric, a friend of mine who was a medical doctor, he just got done with his internship. Now, this is going back to around 2002, or right around there. And before he opened up his practice up here in Puyallup, Washington, he decided, hey, let's go for a road trip, and because we were into photography as a hobby. And I go, hey, well, let's go do the lighthouses in Oregon and all that. And he goes, no, let's go up to the Canadian Rockies. And do like old cemeteries, try to find old whatever. And he said there's an old World War II Japanese internment camp out in the middle of nowhere. And, well, he talked me into it. We went, all the way up to British Columbia, up to the Canadian Rockies. We hiked in a couple miles off of a dead-end road, which wasn't much of a road. We found the thing. And it was a little bit of the internment camp left, but not much. And one thing I did notice, there was like mining equipment, and there was a creek there, and it was built on a base of a side of a mountain. And my friend says, hey, look at that giant bear across the creek. And I looked, and I grabbed my camera and looked through the lens, because I had a telephoto lens, and it freaked me out because what I saw was not a bear. And about the same time I saw it, Eric, it saw us, and it made a big scream like you wouldn't believe. Now, also, what was really scary about it, because it was, base of a mountain, it was echoing like you wouldn't believe. And I'm going to myself, wow, I don't know what that is. And the next thing I know, the thing starts chasing after us. It runs across the creek. We take off running. And that was my experience of a Bigfoot or something similar. I have no idea. But I can honestly tell you, it ran on 2 legs, then to 4 legs, and back to 2 legs.
Well, I'm glad it didn't catch you.
No, I'm glad it didn't either. But I tell you, when we got back to the car, I was getting in the car, and it or its mate or whatever, companion, was maybe 25, 30 feet away from the car, bending a tree over. And it made a scream. Now, my friend is just trying to get into the car. He's got his leg in the car as I'm giving it gas. And I'm dragging him, for a distance before I stopped. And I'll be honest with you. And a lot of people look at me when I tell this story. And I had never really started telling this story up to about a year ago, because I was scared to. It threw a rock, hit the passenger side of the car, put a big dent in the front fender. And the bad part is, it wasn't my car. It was my wife's brand new car. She loaned it to us to go on this road trip. I come home and she goes, okay, what did you hit? And I said, I didn't hit nothing. And I told her what, some like Bigfoot or something, or hairy man or whatever, threw a huge rock and put a dent in the car. To this day, she doesn't believe my story. And sometimes I wonder if it was my imagination, but it wasn't, unfortunately.
Well, everything that you've described are hallmarks of Bigfoot encounters: the rock throwing, the screaming, the charging, the upright and quadruped running of the creature. Those appear in a lot of sighting reports that are reported to researchers across the nation, even across the globe. It's more likely that's what you did see was a Sasquatch and not a bear, because, as we both know, bears can walk on 2 legs, and they're quite sufficient at walking on 2 legs, but usually when they give chase, they drop down to all 4s, and they remain on all 4s. The only time you'll really ever see a bear go up on 2 legs is if it's looking for food, or if it comes across another predator or another bear. They do go up on 2 legs, and they do walk very, very fluidly on 2 legs, not with an issue, but they don't walk for a great distance, especially running. They can't run very well on 2 legs, and if they do, it's for a short distance before they drop down to all 4s and in pursuit of their prey or another animal or person. So consider yourself lucky that you weren't caught by the Bigfoot, or anybody in the car wasn't hit by that rock, because they do tend to throw rocks, and it's more of like a territorial thing. Primates in general, chimpanzees especially, throw rocks and sticks at other predators that are trying to get to them. It's kind of a deterrent, if you will, to force the predator or other animal they don't want in their territory away.
Oh, yeah. Now, I will tell you, the stench was so bad that it literally burnt my throat. I mean, it smelled like feces. It smelled like undescribable. But it actually just it felt like it just took the air out of, the inside of the car. And then it literally felt like your throat was on fire. That's how horrible the smell was.
Yeah, again, primates have a scent gland that they emit a pheromone or a scent that's pretty nasty smelling. And we're speculating, of course, what a Bigfoot might be. We believe it might be an undiscovered primate. And if it is, they possibly could have that same kind of gland where they emit a smell. But to be perfectly honest with you, surprisingly, not all cases of Bigfoot encounters or sightings or activity have a smell associated with it. There are cases that do, and they often describe the smell like you've described, very nasty and eye-watering and burn your nostrils kind of smell, and something that lingers for days. But not all the cases or not all reports have a smell associated with it, believe it or not.
Well, yeah, I have done a lot of research on it. Now, I don't know if you ever heard of Ed Romans, but in Canada, he's like one of the top folk singers, recording artists in Canada. And he called me up about, the first time I talked about, Bigfoot on my show, I guess he listened, and he had to, to call my show and come on as a guest, because he had an encounter up in British Columbia. He has a farm, and it's right near the forest, and he likes taking his dog out in the forest on a path, for a walk. And he said he was going on the path to go into the forest, and he said about 1,000 feet in front of him was a creature that, stood up about like 7-8 feet tall, described what I pretty much saw, and it saw him and started running. What he described also, that he said it ran on 2 legs, dropped down to 4 legs, back to 2 legs, back to 4 legs. And he said it chased him a long distance, and then, the last time he turned around to check and see how close it was getting, it was gone.
That sounds like a bluff charge, where the animal's trying to get him out of their territory. It doesn't want to harm him, obviously. If it wanted to catch him, it would have, and probably would have killed him or done some serious bodily harm to him. But it sounds more like a bluff charge where it wanted to drive him out of its territory.
Well, it did a good job. I know in the case with me and my friend, it did a real good case of, it scared me so bad that we drove maybe about 13 to 15 miles down the road, and we ran into like a little country store, and we went in there and we were really shook up. And the owner of the store noticed that we were really shook up, and he goes, "Well, what were you doing?" I said, "We went up to the internment camp taking pictures." And he goes, "Well, do you have a gun?" And I go, "No, we're American citizens." He goes, "Well, you naturally had bear spray, didn't you?" And I go, "No, I didn't even think about it." And then he was so kind to tell us a week before that, a married couple went out hiking, and I guess the woman got hurt, so the husband went to get help. And by the time he got the help and they got back there, I guess his wife was half eaten, by a bear.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that does happen, and I tell everybody who goes out either researching for Bigfoot or even out in the forest for a hike, always make sure you take bear spray with you, or even a pocket knife or something that you can defend yourself with, because there's a lot of elements out there that can cause you harm, not just the terrain, but wildlife and animals, snakes and stuff like that are out there, bears. They're not friendly. It's not a petting zoo when you go out there, so you always need to prepare yourself and make sure that you're ready for any kind of surprises out there in the forest.
Oh, yeah, because, it would be really scary because, you got anything depending on where you live, cougars, mountain lions, bear, right. Again, snakes or anything like that. And if you're out there, I always tell everybody, make sure you let people know exactly where you're going or the area where you're going at, because if you don't and something happens to you, you're going to be one of the missing.
Yeah, and thousands of people disappear every year and sometimes without a trace, and it's most important that you leave a note with a family member where you're going, and even something in your glove box in your car, a note or something saying what trail you're going to be hiking or how